It's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
Yeah, great.
So let's begin our journey with this. I always start with this question. It's 6 years ago. The pandemic was changing all of our lives. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you do things today?
Gosh, that's a great question. Um, well, first of all, who am I? Professional me, I'm a coach by trade, an executive coach, managing partner and founder of a leadership learning firm. And, from a personal standpoint, I'm a wife and a mom of one amazing, gifted college boy and a Southern gal, born and raised in Atlanta. And so coaching has been my trade for 20 plus years. And when the pandemic hit, we doubled down on helping, right? Coaching is helping people be their best, and particularly in this messy, complex world. So for me, it was let's get busy and help people double down and figure out how to survive as humans, how to survive as businesses. And so many of our clients at that time, and our work is virtual, our classrooms are live or hybrid, but our coaching is pretty much you can do it from anywhere, and clients like the convenience of it. And so it was a wild time. Some clients went underground and just heads down trying to survive. We have a lot of clients in healthcare, and it was like there was no coaching. And then the others doubled down with their time and their teams. And I'm like, all right, what are we going to do, and how are we going to do it? And so I got to see this amazing array of because we coach a lot of organizations, a lot of different types of executives, a lot of different functions. So me, it was a real bird's eye view to be in the midst of businesses and transformation, which is really my favorite thing. Before I became a coach 20 years ago, I did a lot of communication and business transformation. I spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley and the tech bust, helping companies retrench and turn around. And this is the biggest turnaround and the biggest transformation anybody in their human life, business life have ever been through. So for me, it was just doubling down in the messy world and figure out, how do you help?
Yeah.
Who needs help and how do you help? And so my partner and I, coached like crazy. I mean, uh, I think we probably doubled in size just from volume of helping just during the pandemic because it was a whole new world. And,
Yeah.
what do you do? And having a sounding board to talk about that and make decisions and just feel that, crazy need to kind of figure it all out it was a great learning time for us and me.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into exactly what you do on a daily basis. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 13-year-olds. It's career day, and the kid in the back of the room wants to know what you do for a living. How do you answer him?
Hmm. I help people be better in their jobs and their work.
So, what did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your dream gig?
Well, I wanted to be a romance writer, living in the south of Spain, but that gig didn't work out. So I'm always been a world explorer. So something international, kind of world, humans, globe, culture. That was always interesting to me. And my first job was working for an international airline, and that worked there, loved it, was planning on doing global international marketing, and the airline went out of business. And so it taught me that even when you have a job, there's crazy chaos coming along. How do you survive and thrive? And then I went into the communications realm where I worked for 20 years, well, 20 years total in all my communications work, helping people survive this crazy world of work. And if I think back, causes find us. We don't realize that we have missions, pieces of us that we've collected in childhood that become our cause. And it's funny, I remember I was sharing with another colleague, my dad lost his business when I was 13, 14. It had a problem with a partner and his business crashed. And he also had a health issue at the time. And from that view, I got to watch how people turn around and come back and rebuild and thrive. And so I didn't know that that ultimately would be my calling to help people thrive in this crazy, busy, disruptive world, to pivot, to change, to lead with change. But it's funny, I look back and I think of my own story of origin, and that pivotal time really shaped me to be very good at helping people think through how do you deal with chaos, disruption, and crisis, and being in this really just messy, ever changing.
So take me back to the real early beginnings of your life. What did you see? What do you think happened that allowed you to find this calling in life to help people and to even to want to be a writer and to live in the south of France? What were the things that happened that gave you these dreams?
Well, I'm an introvert by nature, so I spend a lot of time in my head and stories, which is why I love your podcast and kind of the work you do and the intersection. Stories are everything. So
Yeah.
for me, it was all about finding stories and being able to travel to places, in the book. I grew up in a very complex, dysfunctional family, so books and reading and stories kind of take you away to parts of the world, amazing things that you might someday see. So it gives you that dream, that aspiration, right? So I think for me, and as an introvert, words are my thing. Words, books, kind of things. And when I joined the communication world, which is a very public kind of PR type medium, but it was still the words behind the story that was my greatest gift. So I think it was my love of the word story. And then the second piece was just watching my father rebuild and the resilience. And I learned several things. Number one, that failure is not fatal, that no matter what happens, how bad you think it is, how destitute you think your family's going to be, that you rally and you find optimism in what maybe feel like a hopeless situation. So you learn to rally. And uh, the second thing is community. I like community is everything. I watched my dad kind of go through and navigate some very tough things from, health and other things, but it was friends, family came, not in a rescue, save you kind of way, but let me help you find the right resource. Let me help you. I believe humans, if you tell them the right story and you ask them for help in the right way, that community is everything. And it also taught me community about family, like how you just double down and help. And, my mom, who had not worked, went back to work. She went to work, started painting because, she's like, I'm a housewife and don't have a lot of skills. And she was a really good painter. She was always working on a project. And so, matter of fact, she helped me get through college on her painting business, which was something she was quite proud of. And my dad, was able to get back on his feet, started a new business because he was over 50. And, even then the corporate world wasn't very kind to rebuilding. And he'd been an entrepreneur, but you learn failure is not fatal. And even I contributed. I remember my dad, borrowing my little Dairy Queen paycheck. I worked at the local Dairy Queen. He's like, "Can I borrow some money?" And this is business loan, right? He's like, he had the little checkbook, that came out, and he said, "I'm borrowing $80, and you're going to get back this interest. This is how businesses do it, right?" So he taught me, even I'm like, "Dad, you can have my money, right?" I recognize it's like, no, no, no. This is you and I kind of working together to rebuild kind of the business of our family. And so it was very sweet and very cute to think about, and paid it off in space because they put me through a great college and years later, and was able to, he said that was always the benefit of helping turn around a family, right? So,
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about heroes or inspirations consistently throughout your career. Who's been that inspirational force for you?
wow, that would be really hard to just say one.
Well, it could be
Um,
multiple.
yeah, I was going to say, I always look. I read a leadership, but Warren Bennis was a great leadership thinker. I always think of books that I go back to, and Warren Bennis wrote the first. He was a wonderful human professor. I think he was at the University of Southern California, very prolific writer of leadership. And so he would write about leaders. And so I don't think it was one leader. It was just his fascination that what made people leaders. And his book was called On Becoming a Leader. And he talked about different people, Norman Lear, for example, and, when he came up with all the, controversial TV shows and you look at people who've been able to build business. It was always in a business setting. I was always very interested in people who are able to build things. And I think I'm a builder at heart. So Warren Bennis was probably the first influential kind of academic leader I followed. I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to learning, and I'm always interested in the study of humans. And so I think Warren Bennis was an inspiration for me. And I always come back, when I think about purpose, people always laugh about this. What's your favorite book? Or what's the book that's most meaningful to you? and It's Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And my husband, my husband is Jewish, and so we've kind of grown up in that kind of talks about the Holocaust and surviving the most awful things that one human can survive, and purpose and meaning. So no matter what's happening to you, and such a very inspirational book, and I've read it like 9 times. And anytime you feel like your life is veering not in where you want it to go, it's an inspirational book to come back and say, humans are quite resilient, capable, kind of re-anchor to what's your purpose, right? What do you believe in? What are you looking forward to? Because um, I went back and studied human behavior kind of mid-career, kind of my early 40s. And, Viktor Frankl was one of the key people we studied. And it was just so fascinating to think about how humans are so amazingly resilient, even in the most tragic of times. And so I think my heroes have always been people who looked at hard stuff and said, we're going to do it in. And I think that's what leadership is about, courage, right?
Yeah.
It's not about strategy. It's not about it. It's about how do we do hard stuff to make the world a better place, whether we're making a better Coca-Cola product or whether we're making a better experience at Walmart or whatever. I mean, everything we do is in service of humans, for humans, by humans. And so I think it's always looking at people who are trying to build something. And obviously, like many folks, I get fascinated by people who build things against all odds. People who get told no, people who, keep going despite what the world may tell them. And that's why I think stories are so important.
So, in the realm of leadership, business leaders doing that, going against the grain because you have a vision and you want to complete it, if you could meet one business mind alive today that's built a product that people come back to, that has a happy customer base, that leads well, that resonates in a way that makes sense to you, who would you love to have a lunch and talk to?
Oh, my. Boy, that's a toughie. That's a great question. Um, well, I don't, that's a great question. I don't know what leader it would be. I'll tell you one company I'm following right now because I just love them. It's Costco. I
Yeah,
probably want to go talk to the Costco CEO, although he's not the original founder. But I think companies that are able to really get what community is all about, right? Like, even when I was in PR, and I've met hundreds of leaders, thousands of leaders over the years, probably, and my work. I mean, I was counting the other day, I probably coached 500 leaders these past years, not to mention the training and teaching and other thing. And it's, the intersection thinking that business is really community. If we're thinking about it right, in my world, this is my point of view, businesses thrive because you have customers. Customers come from community. So business should be and why I do this work is business should be a force for good. Because it's there to be in service of humans in some way. And so I think even coming through the communications world, but I'd like to sit down with leaders. And I was reading Costco story, really, with all this kind of drama and craziness going on in the world about, diversity and being woke and all this stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's about, being true to your values and the courage you bring in, right? And I think leaders who are courageous in times of adversity are some of my favorites. So,
yeah,
um, so any leader who's willing to kind of say, I stand when the world is saying, don't stand,
yeah,
or the world is, it's easy to conform and norm and go be, I call that leadership theater. We're going to go be what you want us to be
yeah,
because it's safe. And so you give me a good old leader who wants to talk about taking a courageous stand, and we'll go have a conversation and hang out for a while.
for sure. So, speaking of those inner motors that make you who you are, what is the energy for you every day to do this work, to change lives, to do the best job that you can do, to take care of your soul, your family, all of these different aspects of living? What is that energy for you every day?
I think the thing I love most about the work I do is helping people figure out who they are, right? Because even if I'm coming in to do a big business or whatever, or leader, it really boils down to leadership identity. And so I think what excites me most is people invite me into their journey, their story, right? Where they are, whether they're trying to turn around a business. I do a lot of work, market's really volatile. You're probably going to have 11 jobs in your lifetime. It's a time, and it kind of harkens back to my dad and kind of how he had to get counsel to kind of think about what was next. And so for me, I think it's the intimacy. Trust is built on three things: credibility, reliability, and intimacy. And I think as a coach, what really motivates me is the honesty and intimacy people bring to talk about where they want to go and what they want to do. And I get to be a journeyman with all these awesome people who are trying to build something. Um, and so I think the inspiration is just helping people live life, build business, become good humans on their terms. And I was very blessed to have, um, about a number of years ago, I got breast cancer diagnosis. Um, Fortunately, it was very early stage. But when someone tells you have cancer or, C word, you like the first thing you do in your life is you kind of look back and you go, oh my God, like, is this it? Right? Like, I don't care how intellectual it is. They tell you it's not bad. And it's like life's mortality just hit you. Right.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, because it was interesting because I got the diagnosis while we were on a family trip exploring our origin of family. How bizarre is that, right?
Wow.
Like at a time for 2.5 weeks, we were overseas, in Poland, in the Ukraine, ironically, right before the Russian war, because my son's family of origin is from the Ukraine. He's adopted. And so we were going through and thinking about history, life, and living, and death, and all these things. And I got this cancer diagnosis. But what was really fascinating in the end is I said, I have lived life on my own terms. I have made choices that were right for me. Not perfect by any means, not always succeeding, lots of failure, starting a business, not having the best partner, starting another business. Like you learn so much along the way. And I said, if this is it, I got a lot to be proud of. Right now, fortunately, it wasn't and isn't. I still got a lot more to do, but I want people to feel that, right? Like so many of us are not living the life chosen. And I chose this profession by accident. I mean, I really wasn't looking to be a coach. Coaching found me as I was so blessed to get a coach early in my career that helped me with my own. And to be able to give that back to somebody has been a blessing. And the fact that I can do this for a living is like amazing, right? That people entrust me with their future as a partner to their future, as a partner on their business. So for me, that inspiration of helping people journey to good places, great places, aspiring places, I mean, it's the kind of thing it's a good gig.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. If you were to walk into a room of everybody that's known you in a business sense throughout your career, clients, colleagues, everyone, and you walk up to a podium and you could tell them one fun story about you, the first concert you went to, a wonderful place you traveled to, jumping out of an airplane, outrunning a bear, a fun story that would humanize you to that room of human beings, what story would you tell that room?
Oh, wow. That is what one story would really humanize me. Um, I will go back to a personal story again. It's funny. As I think about this, it really is about this thing about helping people kind of cross the line of survival. And I remember a story. I just remember the moment I met my son. Uh, met my son when we adopted our son from Russia, and I remember the moment I met my son for the very first time. And the lady, I had a translator with us, and we were in this Russian orphanage in St. Petersburg, Russia. And the woman said to me, uh, "This one, he's trouble." The woman, his caretaker, and she's like, every night when all the children are sleeping, he's screaming his head off. And I said, because he's hungry, and I have to feed him again. Um, and and so, I was talking with the translator. She's like, there's children are not, in those orphanages are really, they're really tiny. They don't have a lot of food. And I felt a sense of pride. It was just a weird kind of feeling. I'm like, you go, guy. You're like fighting for what you need.
Yep.
So I think for me, it's that moment of optimism, hope, and fight that we have when we don't have enough, or we think the world is a crappy place, or we're in that on that bathroom floor moment thinking, oh, how am I gonna kind of go on tomorrow? At the heart, I think I'm an eternal optimist, and no matter what's happening, there's something better. And just sometimes you just got to fight for it,
Yeah.
whether you're fighting yourself, whether you're fighting for something new, whether you're fighting for rights, whether you're fighting, it's just that sense of um, that that courage to keep going forward for what you need
Yeah.
to be to be who you need to be and to do what you need to do. So just a poignant story I always remember.
That's a great story. So let's get fantastical here. I'm gonna
Oh,
All right. Let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you and you walk into a big room and there's a film projector and you walk up and you hit play and it's a 60-second highlight reel of the life you've lived. Would that young version of you believe your life turned out this way?
oh, no. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, it's funny. I always say, what's the old saying? Don't make a plan because if you do, God will laugh at you,
Yeah,
right?
right.
You have all these ideas of what you're going to do, and with your life. And it's not that you're not doing it. People have their purpose and twists and turns. And I think our purposes are there. Yeah, our purpose is sometimes there and sometimes it finds us. But, you know, I've had a wonderful opportunity to have a career. It's had some crazy twists and turns. I worked for some really terrible leaders. I've had a bully boss. That's why I went to coaching. You learn kind of how to survive and thrive in the world. Um, but at this age, to say I have a business, a good business, doing work that I find meaningful, that I love, with a great kid, that's just about, I laugh, I somehow through osmosis you manifest dreams that he's just so fascinating with humans in the world and human geography. So I get to watch the world through his eyes. Got a great, marriage of 28 years. I don't know. I mean, I look back and like I said, I kind of had that reel that when I got that cancer diagnosis and I played over everything and, do I have regrets? Do I wish? Do I have this? But um, I have to say, lived a pretty darn good life and I'm pretty proud of the decisions I made. I'm proud of the courage I made at times when, courage is when you do something you don't, when it doesn't feel comfortable and you do it anyway. I mean, walking out to start your own business, I didn't know what this coaching thing was about. I just had a calling and I'm a big planner. So it's like I have a rope and a plan and I got to know what I'm going to be doing 6 months from now. But when you feel it, you know it, you kind of put it out to the universe. And I don't want to sound too woo woo because I do a lot of structured business too, but I think it's just following the threads of what's important to you and how you need to walk in the world. So I still have a lot more to do. I've got books to write. I've got people to coach. I've got places. We're avid world travelers. I still have so many places on my bucket list to be and listen to stories around the world. So but no, I don't think people ever could look back on that reel and think
Yeah.
life turned out exactly like
Right.
find me one and I want to have dinner with
Yeah, absolutely. I get it. So, of
them.
everything that you've done, accomplished, overcome, and evolved to, what are you the happiest about, the proudest of?
Oh, I have to say from a personal standpoint, it's your kid,
Sure.
right? Like I got this great kid. Like he's a great kid and he's fascinating and he's interesting and so I have to look at it from a family standpoint. You just raise this great little human, or you actually have this little human that you kind of watch because really we don't have as much control as we think. They come in with their own wiring, their own ideals, their own thing. You just kind of have to put the guardrails up and hope it works, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I think for my husband and I, we've raised this great kid that's just a good. And what's important to me is not whether or not he passes math or whatever. He is just a great human. He's a great working on. He's president. He's trying to solve Middle East peace, and he's going to do great things. And or at least at this particular juncture, who knows what twists and turns are ahead from him? He may go become a plumber for all I know.
Yeah.
But right now, he's doing these fantastical things, and seeing that makes you pretty proud.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone that knows you in all these bubbles, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, well, I'm just, it's interesting when I tell people I'm introverted because I'm talking with people and communicating. Um, I am a deep introvert. If it were up to me, I'd sit in my basement and read a book, right? So, and because I'm always thinking about the world, and I've got this computer brain that's always thinking about the world and how do we make it a better place and other things. And so when I tell folks, I could go to a monastery for a year and not be punished, right? Like, I think that surprises people because I've cultivated this spirit of connection, but it is a learned experience. I have to tell you, when people come to me and they're like, "Oh, I don't know, I don't speak publicly, I don't really like it." I'm like, "It's all learned skill. We didn't come out with any." I'm here to tell you, you just have to find how you be comfortable in your skin, how you manifest yourself. But whenever people would, if I said, if you knew me, 30 years ago, you'd find out I hardly spoke. I kind of lived in my head, and my boss had to say, "You got to speak.
Yeah.
You can't go, And so I always say leadership as humans are contact sport. So you got to get out and have your voice heard in the world. And it's a learned skill. So I think when people know me and I say, you don't really realize I'm kind of this hidden figure, that really has this comfort zone inward. But I have spent my life being outward and helping people be more outward facing and have their voice heard. You know, that little girl is still finding her voice. And it's easy to come back to that safe place of just quiet and solitude.
So,
So,
speaking of voices, for anyone out there wanting to find a better handle on their voice, having, changing their lives, reaching out to you, where do they go? Where's the best place? All of the good business.
oh, the easiest place is I am the only Jodie Charlop on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Go to LinkedIn, find me. Thank goodness my husband has a rare Jewish last name, so very easy to find. There's only one me. And so drop me a note, follow me. I got a book coming out this year called Girl Put Your Hand Down, which is really about women in leadership, and another one we're finishing research on called Level Up, the Inner Game of Leading. And yeah, just call for a conversation. And if you're thinking about leveling up or building your story, or your story doesn't feel right, give us a call. We got a lot of great coaches, a lot of great work we're doing for businesses, teams, and individuals. So we're going to keep on keeping on because the world and leadership is not getting any easier.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it really helps to have a change.
I love it. I will put all these links in the show notes. This has been great, Jodie. Thank you so much. So great to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe. Have a great day.
You too.